afternoon. How are you all doing today?
Hey, really good. Nice to meet
Great, thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Welcome to Real in Films. Nice to meet you both. And we're here going to be talking about the movie or the film Tokyo Cowboy. So I wanted to start the conversation off the bat. Like, what inspired you both to bring this film to everybody?
Yeah, so this is an idea that had gestated with me for 30 years, actually. I had lived in Japan 30 years ago, and I worked with a Japanese filmmaker, a very well-known Japanese filmmaker. And after returning home from that, I saw an article about a cattle ranch in Montana that was owned by a Japanese company. This was at the time in the mid 90s when a lot of the different uh, assets and things were being bought by Japan. And it was just this really interesting story about them sending over workers to Montana to learn how to be cowboys, and that juxtaposition of those two cultures was really interesting to me, and it just kind of stuck in my mind. And I thought at some point I'd love to do a film about just with that kind of beginning idea of a cowboy from Tokyo. And Brigham and I knew each other from a long time before. We both went to film school together. Our undergraduate, we both moved to Los Angeles around the same time. I went to film school, and he started working for Disney. And so these many years later, I mentioned this to him, and that I really wanted to make a feature film, and I had this idea for, it was just not a really filled out idea. And we started working together, and Brigham had just amazing ability to help develop this, to help figure out like what could this story be, really with the idea of making something that's very grounded and authentic, and something that could kind of be like some of the films that we both really like. Some of the, like Minari was a film that we talked about, that was an inspiration. Other films that kind of have the ability to just live in the silences sometimes, and just be very grounded and authentic and humorous, but find that humor in these very real situations. So fortunately for me, Brigham responded to that idea and thought it would be a good idea. And so I don't know, Brigham, how are you feeling at that time? I was so
Yeah,
grateful that you wanted to do this.
yeah. I've always been a huge fan and inspired by independent film. I started volunteering at Sundance Film Festival in 1990, and I've gone every year since in some capacity, and love the freedom of expression that you can find there. And so meanwhile, I spent 25 years in a studio system, and I really enjoyed that too. It's a very different set of considerations when you're making a movie. And so the thought of being able to go off and make an independent film with Mark, especially believing just that there was something worthy in the concept of exploring this character journey, and having no other consideration other than what was right for that character story versus all the other considerations you might have on a given studio film, that was really, really enticing. And so I said, yeah, I'd love to jump in.
Okay, that's amazing and great. Yeah, I gotta say, like the story of the film is very I would say fresh and intriguing, because is this businessman goes back to, like, he experiments his roots. Like he notices what he was when he was young, or I would say, like, what the film brings you, that's he goes back to, like, what his father was in the past, and what he's doing now, and what he's going to pursue in the future. And the film is extraordinary. I wanted to ask you both, due to the fact that we have Mark as the director and then Brigham as the producer, were there any type of, like, I'm not, I don't want to say issues, but were they any like uh stops that held to record more or to do more with the film?
So
Like
sorry.
obstacles?
I
What's the
think, yeah,
word?
obstacles in terms of getting it made. Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking? There was, I mean, the biggest obstacle in independent filmmaking is getting financing. And in our earliest conversation, we were talking creatively, and then it was about how do we get it made. And Mark already had a plan to find private and independent sort of a consortium of financiers, and which was good because that's something that I had never had to be concerned about, and something that I wasn't really all that anxious to go do. But Mark did it really well, and so he managed to secure a budget at the same time that we're actually developing this screenplay and just talking about the creative approach. And when it comes to other issues that I think was part of your question, it was a remarkably cohesive process. Like, not that there weren't hiccups just in terms of getting everything in line and getting finances in line, and we had other little challenges that were external, like getting a deal, a low budget deal with SAG and so forth. We had all kinds of challenges like that. But for me, mostly, I'm accustomed to really having a huge issue getting people on the same page creatively, because the normal situation that I would find myself in is to have multiple levels above me and a few below me as a producer, all trying to sort of sing off the same page. And that's really, really hard. And so usually it's just a series of compromises that you have to make and try to find ways to meet in the middle, or to negotiate a one win here and one loss there, and all kinds of things. This was not that case. This was a case where Mark and I really found our way, I think, talking about the same kind of story, and rarely having any kind of diversion there. And then when the screenwriters came in and actually started writing the thing, they delivered a couple drafts, and really the third pass was fixing the changes that we didn't need in the second pass and getting back closer to the first draft, all of which is to say it was a remarkably smooth and kind of unique creative situation in my experience. And so all of that is what made this kind of refreshing.
I couldn't have asked for a better creative partner in this film. And that process that Brigham's describing really was such an amazing and joyful process. And we did have, when we first were talking about how we're going to get this film made, sometimes you think about, well, could we do some kind of pre-sales or get a distributor involved or something like that? And part of it was, not that we wouldn't be able to work within that structure, but this being my first film and wanting to just have the creative freedom of doing the film that we really wanted to make, the two of us, and along with our screenwriters who brought so much to this. And I was fortunate in finding we have about 20 different executive producers, private individuals that just believed in this project. We had a pitch deck, and we talked about what kind of story this would be, and then the people that are involved. And really, it was just they believed these are people that hadn't invested in films before, and they just believed in our team. They believed in Brigham, they believed in me, and they were like, "This sounds like fun. Let's do it." So it came together in that way.
Okay, so now that we're talking about the creative aspect of the film, I like the fact that one of the main languages is Japanese. Was it something that you both wanted to maintain, like have their native language throughout the whole film, and have that, like, I would say, culture clash between the folks of the ranch and between with the businessmen throughout the film?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, this is so much a film about communication and the difficulty of communication and those divides between people and cultures. And so even the Japanese, but also the Hispanic culture, Javier is such an important part of this, because really Hideki and Javier are both fish out of water in this Montana culture. Javier is not comfortable on the ranch. He's not he's an outsider as well. And so the idea of making a film that's really about bridging these divides between people. Here's a character, Hideki, that's not connected to anything. He's not grounded in, he's not connected to the land. He's not connected to his fiance. He's not really connected to his job. He doesn't know it, but he needs something else. And you know, you mentioned about this kind of fresh and intriguing idea. It always had to be about a character. So Hideki, when he comes to America, he doesn't find himself because he comes to America. He finds what's really Japanese inside of himself, and he brings something that's already inside of him to this experience, but he's got to discover that through this character journey. And that's what I love about it. It feels authentic and real, and the comedy comes out of these authentic and real and grounded situations. It seems to be quite funny to people. We've had some really great audience screenings where people really enjoy the film and really laugh and you know, get into that character journey and feel what he feels at the end.
So I wanted to ask you both, is there like a scene on the film that you both like love, or that you guys like all the time like reiterate, like when you talk about the film, like, yeah, this moment when we filmed it is like my favorite moment? Do you guys have any moments like that?
Yeah, there's all of them.
There's a lot. Yeah.
The one that we've talked a lot about is the quinceanera, because that really a pivotal point for him in his journey. It's kind of a turning point, the point that really, you know, kind of cracks him open. And we've had people ask about, well, why didn't we subtitle the speech of the father in the quinceanera? And really it's because I want the audience to experience that moment just like Hideki does. He doesn't understand Spanish, and so we're experiencing that as an audience just as he is, unless you speak Spanish, and then you have an added layer of this beautiful moment. So that, and then also certainly the onsen, or the hot springs between Hideki and Keiko at the end is very, very important and beautiful moment that I was so honored, and they both brought such a great performance and such a authenticity to that moment. And there's a funny story about what was going on behind the scenes when that was being filmed, but those are two that I can think of. I don't know, Brigham, do you have some others?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. When I rewatched the film, I could give you a lot of different answers, but the one that sort of popped to mind was the fact this scene. It's kind of a long and quiet scene where these two characters, Javier and Hideki, are sitting after a little bit of tour of the ranch, and it evolves into a conversation about their personal lives. And it's a pivotal moment in the movie. It was also a scene we lived with off and on, you know, from the very beginning, because we used it to audition a lot of the actors who came in to read for the character of Javier. So we heard it done a dozen different ways. And but it was also a scene that was a little bit daring in how long and how still it really was. And so it received a lot of attention in pre-production, in production, and even in post-production to keep shaping it. And so to the degree that it works the way we believe and hoped it would, again, we still have a lot of audiences that can respond to that, but it's really sort of gratifying. And you also see and can trace these very specific little lines of small but important evolution in that scene, and to the point where I think it found its sort of perfect fighting weight in the movie. And I think, you know, it's a quiet scene, but it really does send the movie off in an entirely different direction. There's the movie before that scene and the movie after.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that at least my favorite, there is a moment in the film that Hideki is with his Montana outfit, and he is like I think it's going to be sunset, if I'm not mistaken. And
it's actually sunrise, but
sunrise.
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily know.
Yeah, so it's like it looks in that moment looked like a photo still, and it was gorgeous. He's like looking into the horizon and thinking, and I was like, wow, this scene is phenomenal. But the other scene that I would say that I liked a lot is that moment where Keiko and Hideki are in the hot spring and they're having that conversation. Like they're like, it's he is showing like her like, hey, it's time for me to change, and I loved it. You know, it was a great scene. So wanted to ask you guys one final question. Um, is the film still in the festival run? Is it getting a theatrical release, or are you still testing the waters with different screeners for different audiences?
Yeah, we're very much in the process, at the very front edge of these festivals, and we've been lucky enough to be invited to a pretty sizable handful of festivals, and so we're looking forward to that. And that is also being a springboard to get deeper into maybe a conversation about distribution. So nothing has been finalized. We've had interest expressed, and so, but we truly wanted to wait for this moment to have it sort of publicly available in the context of these festivals before we really wanted to engage in a more serious way. So I feel confident in saying that we're going to we'll be in release with someone at some point. You know, it's towards the end of this year, so it'd be likely, you know, at some point next year, but we don't know exactly with who and when. So that's all just, I think, in the immediate future for us.
Okay, is there any closest festival that if anybody's interested that can join?
Yeah, so we had this kind of sneak peek at the Montana International Film Festival. Really wonderful audiences up there. We're about to go to the Tallgrass Film Festival in Wichita, Kansas. We'll go from there to Indianapolis, the Heartland Film Festival. Then we'll be in Hawaii at the Hawaii International Film Festival. Following that, Newport Beach Film Festival. That'll be the West Coast premiere. Also in the Ojai Film Festival, St. Louis Film Festival, and one more in Montana. So right now we're in 9 festivals, and we're expecting that we'll be in some more as well. So hopefully it'll be in a place near where people can see it, and we'll start to build our audience.
That's amazing. I'm super excited for everybody that gets to see Tokyo Cowboy on all these festivals. It's an amazing film, and I want to thank both of you for giving me the time to speak about it a little while. And again, an amazing film, and thank you very much for giving me the time to talk about the film.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for your time.
No, thank you. Bye bye.